to rock.
Ready to
Ready to do something. Ready to have a nice, clean family show is what we're ready to do. So, welcome back to the Nutup Show, the show where we talk about what it is that we're doing to take charge of our lives, to grab our nuts and do what we need to do to get stuff done.
That's right.
Just like a squirrel.
Like a squirrel.
Going in there, collecting all the nuts. Then wintertime comes.
Yep.
They eat them? I don't know. What do they do with them after?
I don't know. I'm
Collect
sure
them.
they eat them. That's
Collect
the
them
whole
and get eaten by an eagle.
Yeah, probably.
I don't know what happens. Anyways, yeah, so that's us. That's what we do. That's what you're here. You're here to listen to us talk about that kind of stuff. And today we're going to talk about maybe it's weird, not like a hot topic of the day, even though we've been talking about it for forever.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe now is a good time to talk about it, and that's homeschooling. Because, you know, it doesn't matter what side of, you know, the fence you might be sitting on, since everything is so politicized these days, but about returning to school and vaccinated, not vaccinated, masks, no masks. I want to know who is. I don't care who is.
Yep.
I mean, it's all this big jumble. And
virtual school, real school.
Is that a thing too?
Yeah, I think you can still have that that option in some school, like in some school boards, I'm pretty sure.
Really?
I think
Interesting.
so.
Here in Nova Scotia or just?
I don't know. I don't even know. Probably. I think there's going to be some people that just don't want to send their kids back and would prefer to do it virtual.
Right. And
I don't know.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be like parents on both sides. I mean, I hate to say, first of all, in this whole debate that there's just two sides. There's so much nuance and everyone's just, it's like, you're this or it's like, no. But I think there's going to be people that don't want to put their kids back in school because they're afraid they're going to get something and they don't think that it's the mandates are strong enough, maybe whatever. Yeah. And there's going to be others that are like, no, I don't want to put my kid in school because I don't want to get them. Like, so it's like, I don't know.
Well,
It's just a mess.
And then I think there's going to be people in the middle too, where we're just like, oh, we had kids, I had to homeschool them, or I had to be way more involved in their education, and I actually really enjoyed it, and the kids learned better. So we want to continue on with
and just keep going. Yeah,
I think that's true as well. So
yeah, that's a whole other thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about homeschooling. So I figured it'd be a really good idea to talk about our experiences, maybe. So we've been homeschooling for, I say we, but mostly you. Yeah. For how long now?
This is our 7th year.
So we're going on. So we've had like 6 full years. So we say we've been homeschooling for 6 years or homeschooling for 7 years.
I think this is, I'd say like 6. Like this is because we pulled them out in January. So we had like that half of a school year. Right.
Yeah. So January of,
I forget the year, but Tristan was in grade 4 and he's grade 10 this year.
So in January we will have been doing it for 7 years.
Yeah.
So almost 7 years. What is it, September now?
Yeah.
So a long time. So I guess, you know, we have learned a few things along the way. Yeah. But before we get to that, why don't we just start by talking about what drove our decision in the first place, in terms of deciding to homeschool, really.
So I think the thing was, I always knew school was going to be an issue for Tristan because we've talked about it before, but Tristan has autism. And when he was diagnosed at 2, he was completely nonverbal and remained so until like 5. And even then it was just like one words. It wasn't sentences. It wasn't real communication. It was just still getting there.
Was that long, eh?
Yeah. So I always knew it was going to be an issue. And so it was always like preparing for that time because we couldn't even get anyone like to watch the kids. Putting them in school for that long, I was just like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? So we started at a cooperative preschool. So then I was able to go in and we had a worker. I was able to get to go in with him just to get used to that routine. And then we had such an amazing relationship with our original school in Waterloo. Right. We had a huge meeting the summer before he started his kindergarten year, and everyone was there. We had principal, vice principal. We had the teacher. The
actual teacher.
The teacher, the EAs, educational assistants. We had the teacher from the preschool. We had the worker in the preschool that was with him. Like we had everybody. That meeting was huge. The table was gigantic. And the whole point was this is the kid that's coming to you. This is the strategies at work with him. And let's all work together as a team so that he has the best educational experience possible.
Right. Yep.
So, and a lot of work went into that. He had an independent education plan. Well, and even before that, like I made this whole big, like all about me page. So they kind of knew what to expect, what his different noises were, all of these things. It was like a 2-page document. It was
right.
huge.
So let's just back up a second here.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a couple questions.
Yeah.
So how did you even get to the point where you were able to have this sit down meeting with all of these important people? Like, I mean, there's so many kids in a school board. They don't have time to meet with a parent like this and have such an in-depth meeting, right? So how did that happen?
So that was just the squeaky wheel gets the grease. You just have to do it. You have to call everybody. You have to just call everybody. You have to say, look, this is what needs to happen. We need to have a meeting before this kid gets into school. So let's arrange it. Everybody, like, we got to pick a date. Because it wasn't only that. Then I was also going to say there was someone from Kids Ability there that did his speech in occupational therapy.
Kids Ability is
the child development organization for Waterloo region.
And probably most major cities will have something like
They'll
this.
have a child development center. Yeah, ours was just called Kids Ability.
Right.
Toronto's is called like Blurview or something like that. So, and then even like his, what was that? I forget the name of his therapy that we got now.
Oh, like the IBI?
Yeah, IBI. Yeah. So his, intensive behavioral intervention therapist, she was there as well. So like it was a huge meeting.
Yep.
So I called everybody and I said, like, we all need to meet because we all can have input into what is best and how to move forward best with him. So that was just a lot of like parental advocation.
So for somebody who might be listening is like, I want to, I have a child with special needs or what have you, and I kind of want to talk to a school board and get this kind of set up. So you're saying the key to success with trying to get some kind of meeting like this, even if it's not as big as what you were just describing, is to just really be that advocate for your child, and that it's going to take a long time. Like, it's not going to be like, call up the principal, says, I want to have this meeting. They're like, sure, let's do it.
Yeah, no.
It's going to be a lot of sweat work.
The thing is too, is like, you're going to have people that, like our IBI therapist, all the therapists, plus the preschool, they knew me and we already had a relationship. So they were really willing because they wanted him to be successful too. And so this school was awesome and they were also willing. So that helped as well. There was no resistance at all.
And the fact that it was like almost a brand new school, I think, when we went there. It was like a year or two in or whatever. Yeah.
So, and I think, we should probably actually do like a whole other podcast about like working with your school, because that is
how to do it.
Yeah, because that's a really big one. And I was really successful at Millen Woods, which was why it really hurt when we moved to Sudbury and I was so unsuccessful with that school. And so...
But that whole school was a whole other issue too, because it was not a good school.
No. It was not a good
and they didn't have the resources either that Millenwood had. So that's another thing too. Like, some schools have good resources, some of them have bad. But I think the people that were at the top too.
Let's talk about school culture, because that's a big thing. One really great book to read about school culture and creating a really good school culture is called The Leader in Me. And it talks about how to create a leadership culture within the school.
Do you know the author of that book?
I can't remember his name, but he used the same guy that wrote like the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So we can put that in the show notes, I guess.
Sure.
It's an excellent book. And so definitely the school culture at the first school was really cooperative. Everyone was involved with everything. You had kids in grade 6 that were paired with kindergarten kids. The janitor was even like a highly respected team member of the school. Like everyone worked together. Everyone was always like, it was great. But the culture of the other school was not like that at all. It was totally a me versus them. We have to beat these students into submission. They need to do what we're saying. It wasn't collaborative teamwork at all. So
how do you identify that? So like, what do you mean when you say like, oh, it's me versus the kids?
Well, there was a lot of yelling. So Tristan, when we put him in that school, he was on a modified day. So he was only really there for a couple hours. So I would drop him off in the morning and then pick him up a little bit after noon.
Right.
So I would have to sit in the office and wait for him. And across the room from the office was a kindergarten class. Mm-hmm. The yelling that I heard in that class was unreal.
Like the teacher yelling at the kids.
Yes.
And we're talking kindergarten here.
So like 3 to 5 year olds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have these adults yelling at them.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
Yeah. And then Maya would also tell us that like their gym class, the teachers would just yell at them. So I would believe her because I had heard it myself, right?
On your feet, Megan.
Well, yeah.
Oh.
But I guess the thing that was the most disheartening was I had been told that because of school board bureaucracy, that it was going to take a while for Tristan's independent education plan, which had all of his accommodations and modifications that he needed to make him successful at school, which me and the teachers and special ed department at the other school had worked tirelessly on.
Yeah.
That information, because of the bureaucracy, would take months to get to that school and for them to be able to access it.
It's like you couldn't just take the folder and just give it to them.
So what I did was I was like, well,
this is bullshit.
That's fucking ridiculous. So I emailed the school, introduced myself to the principal, let her know we had registered Tristan. This is what's happening. This is the kid that's coming in. Here are all of the attachments. Here's his All About Me page. Because by this time he was in grade 4. Here's his All About Me page. Here's his IEP. Here's his safety plan. Here's his psychoeducational assessment. I don't want you to have to wait. I want you to have it now. And I did this in end of October. And so we didn't move.
Right, because he wasn't starting until January.
He didn't start till January. So they had 2 months of lead time. Not only that, the special ed department, his teacher at the time, as well as his EA and the principal, all were like, give them our number. We are willing to talk to them to help you have a successful transition here. So done.
So what happened?
So then I go in to meet Tristan's teacher before, and you can just tell with people,
someone's
right?
not interested, or
It's
they're
just not interested. And so not only that, I brought hard copies of all of those things for him as well, just because that's who I am.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, and here's the, this, and he was just like, oh, like not interested, like didn't even want to touch it. Like it was almost like a scene out of a movie, right? When like, you give them papers and they don't even want to touch.
I don't like people handing things.
Yeah, it was so weird. So I was like,
so it's like they're not even going to read it.
So I was like, yeah, this is, I don't.
So then it's like going back to what you're saying before. It's like you got to put in the work to get your teachers or whatever into that meeting. But then it's like you can't. It's like maybe it's a combination of hard work, but also a combination of luck in terms of the actual school that we got.
100% it is. Yeah. So then the other thing I had asked was, is there some way you can pull EA support? So there's an educational assistant. Can you pull some support just for, he's only there for 2 hours a day. Can you pull some support and help him transition to this new school? He's moved to a new city, which if you know kids with autism, transition is not an easy thing. So you have that and a new school. Like, can you pull a little bit of help? He's only, not happening.
They didn't do anything.
Not happening at all. It's completely unwilling. And I was met with just like, how could you even suggest something so ridiculous?
Yeah.
So then the straw that broke the camel's back was I had gone to pick him up the one day, and the principal was just like, yeah, it was not a good day. Like, it was bad. And I was like, why didn't anyone call me? Like, why wouldn't you call me to let me know? And so she's starting to tell me about it, and I don't see the teacher anywhere. And then he's leading the whole class out from the gym past the office. And I said, oh, hi, like, the principal just told me that he had a really rough day today. Like, what happened? And he's trying to talk to me a little bit, and I'm seeing what had happened as he's telling me. And I'm like, oh, well, have you read the IEP? Because if you do this and this and this, but that the IEP list, like that's what you would do.
Right. And
he just kind of looked at me. He's like, haven't read the IEP.
Yeah.
You've had it for 3 months, and this kid is in your class, had been in your class for 3 weeks, and you don't take it's going to make your life easier.
I don't even know this. I'm losing my shit on this guy.
Yeah. So I was just
I knew the whole thing was bad.
Yeah, we're done here. And so it wasn't only just Tristan. Obviously, that's enough to want to pull your kid out, right? No, and then the other thing was both the principal and teacher were there at the same time once I was told about this. And I said, well, I'm always like, what about some IEP support or some EA support here? Can we get someone just to help him out for a little bit till we get past this? And they're like, No, can't. But we have 4 congregated classrooms.
Yeah.
Just for kids with autism. Why don't we put them in one of those?
That's all they want to do. Push them in.
I was like, this kid has been in mainstream class with his peers for 5 years. Everyone that's been around him have worked our butts off. He has worked his butt off to remain with his peers, and you want to separate him out? Forget it. You just want behavior management. You don't give a shit about if he's going to actually learn and succeed. So you can fuck right off. I'm pulling my kid. So that's disheartening as a parent who really wants to work with the school. That was disheartening for me.
So I mean, it goes to show that, I guess, for people listening, that maybe you just can't. There's just no way to work with a school if they're not willing to. I mean, I guess you could have easily kept fighting more, right? Then you go to the school board, then you go above, you keep going above and above, but that would be such long struggle.
I've seen parents do this, and then they go above and above and above, and then it ruins that relationship between you and the teacher.
Oh, of course, because there's
resentment, and then of course they're not going to treat your kid very well.
Yeah, exactly, right?
It's
very difficult, and it's interesting. So, like, if we could just back up even before we even had kids. And I have the whole personal philosophy that I just think school is completely horrible for kids even to begin with. Mm-hmm. So there was already that impetus or whatever to not even have the kids in school, because I just don't believe in it. Because not that I don't believe in it. That's kind of a stupid word. It exists. It's there. So no, it doesn't. But I just think, like, I just see school now as pretty much just a glorified daycare where they just stick kids in, and then maybe some kids learn or whatever. And I think it's good for some kids to learn and whatever. And I didn't have that bad of it. Like, actually, well, I think I did. I think I did really have some pretty hard times with bullies and all that kind of stuff, and just with teachers and because I don't remember very much of things. But I mean, I guess I did kind of learn, but when I did learn, it was just kind of on your own when you're like, okay, finally, I kind of have to learn this stuff. It wasn't from sitting in class and learning.
Yeah.
But anyways, I think it's good for some people and they'll learn really well. Mm-hmm. But for most people, I mean, it's not tailored, and you have all these kids together and you have like one teacher and everyone's just running around.
And I think a really good example is also, because obviously Tristan was the big thing, but then it was like, well, what do we do with Maya? Like, do we also pull her out? Like, she's just fine. She's learning just fine.
Well, she at the new school too was horrible.
Oh, there was she was being bullied. And so I was like, we're done here. And like I said, the teacher yelling at them in gym class, like we're not. Yeah,
it's gym class.
Yeah, there should not be no yelling. It should be the funnest class ever.
Yeah.
But I remember when we were in the old school, her teacher, this was like grade 1, grade 2. Her teacher came to me and said, it was like during one of the parent teacher interviews, and was like, she's having some trouble in math. Like, I think you need to do some extra work with her. Like, I think you need to do, she's having a hard time with this. So here's a book maybe you can read, and you need to do extra work with her. So it kind of,
and it's like, isn't that your job?
Well, and like, this is how I feel, right? Like, I don't want to be like an asshole. And of course, if she needs extra help, obviously that's just the mom I am. I'm gonna help her, do the work. Right? But at the same time, it's just like, are you fucking kidding me?
It's like you're going to go to school for
6 hours, and you can't take a little bit of extra time out and help her with math.
It's almost like at work, where I finish work, it's like, well, I'm going to need you to do more work because you didn't get enough work done during work time. It's like,
so it just really rubbed me the wrong way. And then not only that, I really do not believe in homework for kids in elementary school. Like, no, they need to just have fun after school is finished and be with friends and family and just rest their little brains. Yeah. So I'm not doing that.
But there's also, and the other thing, aside from the fact that the way the teaching environment is laid out, I don't think it's very good for most students. I just feel like it's a people factory,
Yeah, it is.
People are like, parents are like, well, I got to go to work, so where are my kids going to go? I guess they're going to go to school.
Yeah.
And that it's not knocking people that put their kids in school. Obviously, it's like 98% of people. Of course. So that's not the point. So there's the way that the kids are taught, which I think can be better. And I think a lot of people can probably agree that, like, the way it's taught, but it's also the actual material that's taught. It's like you go through all from like the time you're kindergarten or whatever it's called, till even high school, the end of high school, till you're like 18 years old or 17. I don't even know how old you are now when you're done.
Yeah.
But you don't even learn things like how to open up a bank account. Like the basics of life is not learned. How do you do banking? How do you make a budget? How do you even, I guess there's the home ec.
You can make the argument that things like that, is that not the parents' job? Because my parents took me to open up my first bank account.
Okay, but even that, okay, maybe that's an exaggeration. Yeah, but did they teach you what compound interest is and how to,
yes, and so that should definitely be taught.
Taught you how to invest, or taught you like what are the consequences if you go off to university and have all these student loans?
No.
Do they tell you that, if you have student loans, this is the type of debt it is, and that it can't be charged off if you're in bankruptcy? All these things that
I think, and I think the thing too is like it's a one size fits all approach. And so if you're a kid who, say like Maya with the math, and you're not 100% getting it, but you don't qualify for like a learning disability, because then learning disability gets you all of the special ed resources. But if you're just in the middle, you're kind of fucked, because there's nothing for you there. So that's why it's really,
but most people are in the middle.
Yeah,
that's why they call it the middle.
Yeah, well,
it's like the bell curve average, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Most people are in that area.
Yeah.
So that's, it's fundamentals of like how to interact and how to be productive member of society, and like talking about like all the stuff that we're talking about, like how can we be successful in life? Like we're 40 years old now, and we're trying to piece that shit together. You should piece that shit together when you're a kid, so that way you can just enjoy the shit when you're older, right? But you gotta figure out, you gotta have lessons and whatever you gotta learn, but but it should be kind of ingrained at the start of like, these are important values to have. How do you want to live? Do you want to get a job? Do you want to be an entrepreneur? Do you want to, these are the different things. Yeah. But it's okay to not know what you want to do, but
give the tools.
Give tools. You just got to give the right tools.
Yeah.
So anyway, so those are so I've always been, homeschool, of course.
It's so funny because I'm like, are you crazy? Like, I'm never being a homeschool mom.
Yeah.
Those are the people that are fundamental religious people, which I'm not. Those are crunchy granola hippie moms that I'm just not.
Where do you get these terms from?
It's just like those stereotypical,
homeschool, but they're not though.
But now they're not, and now obviously I know they're not. But back then it's like that's
what you thought.
I thought, right? So, yeah.
So I was always for homeschool, but like you're saying, you weren't always homeschool, or you've had, like, I imagine you had like really bad not bad reservations, but you had a lot of reservations and a lot of self-doubt. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I guess like the thing is like, I think when you're kind of like up against like an institute, you feel like you're like up against an institution, and you're just kind of like, who the hell do I think I am that I can teach my kids better?
Like I know better than the school system.
Board of Education. Like, so there was that. There was also, what is my family gonna say? What's my mom gonna say? What are my friends gonna say? Like, there was all that kind of peer pressure that I was afraid of judgment. And just like, this is outside the box thinking. I'm not an outside the box thinker. Like, I've been forced to be an outside the box thinker.
Would you say that you're an outside the box thinker now, or are you still?
I go into my box every once in a while because it's a safe space for me.
Nope.
Yeah. So, but no,
That's fair.
Well, but I've had to be.
I peek out the window every once in a while.
But I've had to be because
it's cold outside. Stay inside here.
Stay in here. No, because I think like having a kid with a special need, I mean, that's a whole thing you are never expecting as a parent. You just think things are just.
It's a whole nother
level. Yeah.
Like variable in the equation.
Yeah, and so that prepared me, and then obviously this is. Yeah. And so, but I also knew like this is not a good spot for my kids. This is not a spot that I want them to be 6 or 8 hours a day in. Like, I can't. I just knew. It's like I felt awful going in. I didn't even meet it. We were there for like 3 weeks, and usually like I'm able to meet people pretty easily.
Oh, so you're talking about
at the school.
When we moved to Sudbury, the new school.
But like I couldn't get like a vibe from anyone, like
Right.
even like to go up.
Like too is winter
it was
time, right?
weird.
And in Sudbury,
No, but like
it was
all the
freezing.
parents were there to pick up kids, and I just none of them looked friendly. Like I couldn't like break the ice or even make eye contact with them. So
Sudbury's actually not that bad for friendliness. Maybe it's just where we're living.
that's what I'm saying. It was at school and people there. But anyways, so
We were living with the poor folk.
but we weren't. Like,
I don't know.
poor people are no less friendly than other people. I don't know where it's coming from.
I'm stereotyping. Whatever.
Clearly,
Call me whatever you want. Poor people are unhappy. Rich people are the happiest people ever.
I feel like
Book
it's
it.
opposite.
Look at yeah, it probably is opposite.
But anyways, so
Down the poor common folk.
yeah. But I guess like and I think having you, obviously, you're just like, ugh, wish we'd have taken them out years ago. I should never put them in. And so it's
Well,
just
yeah.
like, you know, obviously, like your support, just like with everything with the kids, was everything.
So just going back to what you're saying about like you're worried about what your mom, family, or whatever was going to say and friends. So how did it turn out?
Oh my God! Like this is the
Were
thing.
you worrying for nothing?
Yeah, 100%.
All right.
Everybody was.
I just want to put that on the
You were
record
just
because
like,
that's what you do.
because that's what you do.
I'm going to worry about this for like 10
Ever.
years and be like,
Get myself an ulcer and
ah,
whatever else.
no one cares.
Everyone was so supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah, except for one of your aunts, and she's a teacher, and she kind of grilled me. So
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah.
you could tell she's not.
They weren't like
into-
all my aunts teachers. I don't know,
Yeah,
not all
but
of them.
she was just like, "How are you gonna do this? And what about this?" I was like, "It's okay,
Oh, we got this.
we got
It's
this."
fine.
Yeah,
I don't got this. What's going on?
I
I
know.
don't know what's going on.
Fake it till
So-
you make it.
Yeah. If you want to be a millionaire, just act like a millionaire. It's like, I don't think it happens that way. I want to tip you whatever. Ooh,
Shit,
I
I
gotta-
can't pay for my meal.
Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. Just gonna run out the door. So we decide to we move to Sudbury. We're like, that's it. We're gonna pull them out of homeschool. We're gonna pull them out of school, and we're gonna start homeschooling.
Yeah.
All right. So actually, I say back up because we were in homeschooling before then too. I would imagine too, right?
So so it's good that you did point this out, because in the summer I would starting preschool, I would always do little lessons with them. Nothing big, always play based, but always little alphabet, always reading. We've always read to them since they were in utero. Always reading, little bit of writing, little bit of math, and like little bit of science, because we're scientists and I love science. So we were always doing stuff like that in the summers. And the reason was because of how Tristan learns. If we didn't keep that continual learning and that continual schedule, it would have been a complete shit show come September. He would not retain things, and the schedule.
That's what it's like for normal kids too. I don't know if you remember going back in September,
it was
like,
the
what the hell is this? I don't remember any of this
worst.
stuff.
I hated it. I even seeing the kids like in Walmart when we went shopping this week, I was like, oh, I just remember that first week back at school, how much I hated it. Getting back in that routine.
Well, it's just
classes.
the first, yeah.
Ugh, it was awful. So,
Calm
but
down.
anyways, so even before we homeschooled, we homeschooled.
Yeah, because I think too, because Tristan was half days as well, then he'd come home and do some kind of homeschooling too.
That was the year before we pulled them. So that was in his grade 3 year. Yes, he was on a modified day the last half, like in the spring, summer.
Right.
Yes, so that's true. Yeah, we did. He was on a modified day.
So then I guess this is my question is, so we decide to do some homeschooling. So I guess we started to go slow. But you've never done this before. You don't know what's going on. So maybe can you just talk a little bit about what your first thoughts were in terms of what you were going to do and like how it was going to work?
Okay. So this is the thing about me, is I'm a little bit of type A. And so I'm like, I got this. So
Of course you do.
So I go and I look on our Ontario Provincial Board of Education website to look up all of the curriculum for both of their grades. What are they doing in math, language, science, social studies, everything. I even remember looking in the gym curriculum, and they're supposed to do dance. And I was like, shit, do I have to learn how to square dance? Like, is this
absolutely
necessary? But anyway, so, and then I'm looking at all the like expectations and I'm like, okay. And so I'm kind of making lessons based on this. And I'm like, okay, we're going to have like, language and math, and we're going to read this book, and we're going to have like a whole full day. And this is when we're going to start. We're going to have a break here. We're going to have lunch. We're going to come back for school, and we're going to school until 3:30. And this is how it's going to be. And yeah, that just, no.
Didn't work.
No.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too, because I remember you saying that like this was going to happen, and I'm like, the whole point of homeschooling is to not just do what they do there, because that's another reason why we're doing it, because what they're learning is kind of crap. This is not how our kids need to be learning. Is not what they should be learning at this stage of the of their development.
If you are a type A inside the box thinker that I am, that's all you know.
How much more inside the box? I'm going to pull you out of school and just do the exact same
thing at the kitchen table.
Yeah.
So, but like that was like basically like all I knew. So that's what I'm gonna do. That's what we're gonna do. Yeah. So no, it's blew up.
So then maybe describe how you transitioned away from that and to maybe start talking about how you settled into a good routine and maybe where we are now. I don't know.
Yeah. So it took about a year to kind of figure out, like, I think this is the big thing that people need to realize too. You have to de-school the kids because it's a whole new thing, and you have to de-school yourself. Like, I had to totally de-school myself.
So what do you mean by that? You're saying de-school the kids and de-school yourself?
Have a transition time where you're just hanging out at home, playing together. If there's an opportunity for learning, like, put it in, but really have like the lowest possible expectations.
You're talking about like a summer break kind of thing, or like a 1 or 2 week just not do anything?
Yeah, just chill out at first, and then maybe slowly kind of introduce some lessons and some structure to stuff. Okay. Whatever works for you, whatever you think is going to work for your kids. So, and just like have like low expectations about what's going to happen. And I think the big thing is, because I always thought, I have to be the perfect teacher. The kids have to be little geniuses because I'm taking them out, so they better know, they better be perfect. If they have to be called on to take a test or answer a question, they better have the exact right answer because I'm,
like that Captain Fantastic movie where the 5-year-old is reciting studies. I was like, okay, come on.
I know.
Which is totally cool, by the way. That'd be awesome to have a 5-year-old that could do that, but not quite realistic, I guess.
Yeah, so I think you have to let go of that, because no kid is like that, regardless of where they go to school, unless they are a genius. So yeah, you have to.
Actual genius.
Yeah, you have to let go of it. I mean, I think the best place to start though is your provincial or state or whatever it is curriculum expectations. I know in the States they actually do have to follow those expectations in some states, and so you do have to fulfill certain things. Like, it's a bit more hardcore in some places. So
you have to meet certain requirements in order to actually be able to continue teaching your kid.
I think so. So
how do you see? This is what I think when you have like certain rules or mandates or whatever. It's like, at the end of the day, how are you going to enforce these things? Right? Is it by the gun? Like, is it that we're going to take your kids away, or are you going to go to jail? Do you know what I mean? Like, at the end, if you're like, well, I'm teaching my kids this, and this is what I think is best for my child. So but I get it, right? Like, could you imagine like say for us, like we're teaching them every day. We're sitting down, but it's like, no, I'm not teaching them about this. I'm teaching them about that.
Yeah.
And is someone going to be like, well, you're not following the curriculum, so that's, you know what I mean? Like, what's the punishment? Anyways, that's not the point of what we're talking about. But it's just interesting to kind of think about.
Yeah, but anyways, I really think if you are really lost and you don't know what you want to do,
it's a good place to start.
It's a really good place to start, and just start with like the basics: math, language, science, social studies.
Yeah, and I was going to say, especially if you get sprung, something happens where it's like, oh my God, I got to pull my kids out of school, and you're not even prepared, because I would imagine a lot of people will be like ho-humming about this for like a year or like a month, and then you could be like, okay, well, you're going to do this, so here are maybe some homeschool resources that you kind of tap into that might be helpful. Like, I know you really love Teachers Pay Teachers, and it's a resource that has like little courses or like not lessons, right? Like, so you can like, oh, here's a little package on chemistry at the kind of grade 5 level, or here's this thing. So you can just kind of take that, put it together. And then you'll have time to go over the curriculums and find out what your kids like and whatever, and to develop your own lesson plans.
Well, and I think the big thing
that's what teachers do. anyways, right?
It is. Well, and I think like the big thing too, another reason to really take a look at those curriculum requirements is because like I'm always thinking about the future for these guys. I have been ever since Tristan was diagnosed. Like we need to be thinking, 5-10 steps ahead here for his future, and what do we need to do now to get him to where he can be successful. And so when I looked at that, I was like, if we ever have to put them back in school, I want it to be an easy enough transition, and so that they're going to be learning the same things as their peers, and so they're not going in and like clueless.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then also, if they want to go to post-secondary, they have at least a pretty good foundation for whatever tests they need to take to get in, or whatever credits they need. I've given them that foundation, so it's there.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that, because I know for me, again, we're very different.
I know.
Because I'm like, because you're saying, oh, go just in case they go back to, I'm like, they're not going back to school. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So why would I plan for that?
I know.
Because this is what's good. But if the situation would be like, we both had to work or whatever, and then we have nothing to do, right? And it's like, well, someone's got to take care of my kids, so it's going to be the school, right? So that would be the only scenario.
Well, yeah.
And then the other thing is like, if they do want to go to post-secondary, first of all, now that's a joke.
I was gonna say, first of all, don't.
Post-secondary is a joke, because it's just like, I don't even want to talk about how crap. This is another reason why I think school is whatever.
Yeah.
But like, if you just like, if you have to take, I guess it depends. Like if it's like engineering or whatever, like I think you just have to like write an essay, and then I think maybe you do have to do a test. I'm not sure, but even then, it's going to be mostly on your English and your like how well you can write.
Yeah,
and how you know the basics of like the mathematics, right? If you're going into engineering, calculus, whatever, they're going to do like test you on that. Maybe I would imagine. I don't even know what's required, but.
So I know a homeschooler here who her daughter is going at one of the universities here.
Right. So what they have to do?
So she actually did take some high school credits online, just so she had. So she had those credits, right? But it was only a couple, and then the mom had like homeschool assignments and written work that she had done in homeschool and
put in like a package.
Yeah, exactly. And she made up her own transcript kind of thing for homeschool. So again, like that's what I've been doing since last year for Tristan.
Right.
Well, for
start
both
doing
kids
that.
now. Yeah.
But you don't even want the transcript too of the last
2 years.
2 years or whatever it is, right? That's the marks that they always looked at when we were in school, right?
Yeah. So, and then they went in and talked and met and said, this is what I want to do. What do I need to do to get in?
Yeah.
And they were like,
that's true. Yeah. You'll have the time to go. It's like you're not
exactly.
homeschooling yet. They're in grade 12. It's like you pull them out like before. It's like, what do they do? It's like,
it's
there.
So,
but yeah.
But then I think too, so once you kind of have an idea of the curriculum basic stuff, then I think the most important thing is, what are your kids interested in? What are they good at? And focus on that as much as you can. Like as much as you can.
Yeah.
So
focus on their strengths.
Yes. Focus on their strengths and focus on what they're interested in.
Yeah.
Use it to teach everything.
Yeah. There's different philosophies on this in terms of like life, where some people are like, you got to double down on your strengths, right? Focus on what you're good at. Which is true. I think if you want to be really good at something, you got to put forth the time. But then there's other people that are like David Goggins, for example, who's like, you just double down on your weaknesses, right? So build up if you're not good at it, well, then work hard to get good at it. So, but I think when you're talking about teaching kids and being in school, I think you do have to focus on their strengths. Like, what do they love learning, especially at the start? Well, they really love math. Well, then do math and make sure they get really good at that. So then they get used to being in that new environment of homeschool.
Well, and builds up the confidence as well. And your confidence as the teacher.
So you're going to be having a much easier time. And get kind of put in the bank those successes and those wins to then move on to those other subjects or categories that they're not as strong as, but you know what? It is important, right? Like, I know you don't like English, but this is really important. You kind of have to learn how to speak.
But then I guess like you're talking about strengths, but I'm also talking about interests. So then you would use their interests to help teach them the topics they're not as strong at. So
right. So like,
here's one example is Tristan and reading. In the early days, it was just
struggle.
A struggle to get him to read. And I'm like, this is like kind of number one. You need to read. Like, we need to figure this out. But it was a struggle. And I'm like, if I fight him on this every single day, he's going to just hate it. And we're working. I'm going to ruin it for him. So, and he loved to read just nonfiction Star Wars books. And I was like, he's reading. Does it really freaking matter what he's reading?
Yeah.
Like, just let it go. Let him read what he wants to read. And so, there's no problem now. He still is not a novel guy. I mean, he's read a couple. He's read a couple, but he reads.
Still have things to work on.
But he reads all the time. So I'm not concerned about it. He reads and he comprehends, which is the biggest thing.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right.
So that's where it's like using those interests. And
so use the interests to build up the things that you're not as strong in.
Yeah. Or if it's something that might be a little bit boring, like if you're going to write word problems for math, well, write word problems about stuff they're interested in.
Right. Like, if it's about hockey, it's like player A is going to skate into player B at 5 miles an hour, and he's going to, at what point they're going to collide. And
whenever I do that, like I make up funny stuff, they always love it, and it's way more engaging, and it's like a smile comes to their face, even though it's long division and they hate it. They're just like, oh, this is funny. So it's fine. Yeah.
You punch your sister 3 times, but then she punches you 5 times. How many punches till you get a concussion? I don't know. Doesn't make any sense, but hey.
But then I think that conversation then also leads into to be successful with kids, you also need to be a little bit aware of their learning style. And I think that's a really big one. Tristan, obviously I knew because we've been doing therapy for
so long.
Yep. I knew exactly what kind of learning style he is. He's a super visual learner. So I would have big anchor charts on the walls with pictures of what we were learning, with the writing really big so he could see it in different colors. So learn what your kid's learning style is. And so visual, I mean, obviously that's a pretty easy one. There's kids. Maya is a lot better with reading to understand things. And so this has been difficult for me to kind of figure it out because math comes very easy to me. It doesn't to her, but she's better at reading things and understanding. So I'm actually making up our own math curriculum that has everything written out, the concept explained in words, not just in pictures, how a lot of the math textbooks do it. She doesn't learn it that way. And then writing out step by step by step, showing this is how you do the long division. This is the step, and writing it out in words.
Right.
So
she can just read it.
So she can just
maybe
read
comprehend it a little bit better.
And then other kids are really kinesthetic. So they need to touch things. They're tactile. So it's like there's a really good, program for math called Math You See, and it's a curriculum, but then they have blocks and manipulatives you can use to make things for math. So that's for those.
Is it kind of like those chemistry sets where you make molecules?
Kind of, but they're like blocks, and the blocks fit together, and they have like 100 10s, 1s, 5s, kind of all stuck together. Yeah. So
I'm curious to see what that is. I want to play with those things.
I know it's like very expensive, but if your kid learns that way, then that's a good investment to make, right? So,
all right, just submit your credit card here. We'll take 5 easy payments of $29.95.
Yeah, and so that's the thing too that I would say is like, you're going to be bombarded with looking at all these different boxed curriculums. Do not buy in your first year. Just don't do it. You're going to be so tempted to. They're going to look beautiful and gorgeous. The
way they're all packaged in this nice package. Just buy this and you'll be able to teach your kids everything, blah, blah, blah.
Do not do it. Yeah. Just wait. Figure it out first. Take it in. Figure out what your kid's learning style is, their interests, because the people that I know that have bought them, there's always something in there they don't use, or it's not suited to them, or there's
maybe most of the things in there they don't use.
Yeah, so that's the problem with that.
And we're talking, thousands of dollars. We're not talking about a couple $100 here. No. Thousands of dollars on these different things, and like per year. And
because if you have more than one kid and completely different grades, like we're lucky enough, the kids are close enough in grade and learning level, like we could just do all the same thing. Like we're really lucky that way. Yeah. But if you have 2 kids, like grade 1 and grade 5, you're going to be buying 2 different boxed curriculums per year. Like that's
at least 2.
Yeah, that's too much
for sure. That's a lot. Yeah. So that all ties back into what we're saying about how schools they're not tailored for the individual, right?
Yeah,
So if a
like
kid,
it's-
like that, any teacher, they're not going to be like, well, this kid likes to learn this way, so I'm going to get the materials for that, or I'm going to design the course. Like, no, they can only design it one way. And yeah, some of the kids fit that way, but what about all the rest of the kids, right? They don't learn that way. So they're going to be having a much harder time.
And then you may think, oh, if I buy this curriculum, then I can reuse it for my younger kid. But again, if your younger kid doesn't learn like your older kid, then you're kind of screwed.
Yeah. Well, unless you just force them to learn that way, right? And that's when a lot of homeschoolers, I find, they end up butting heads with their kids. They're like, oh, it's not going well. It's not happening. It's like, well, are you trying to force things that shouldn't be forced? Have you tried different learning style? Have you not, are you not, like you're spending too much time? And that's maybe, should we talk about that in terms of how, you know, initially your idea of homeschool was like, oh, they're just going to do 6 or 8 hours a day and we're just going to be good. And like, and where are we now? Like
so now we're just a few hours a day. So we're like 9:30 to 12:31. Yep. And that's it. So, and we've been that way for a few years
for a
now.
while now. It's that balance. And
yeah.
It's one of the things that I've always said is that you can be at school for, 6 or 7 hours, but then, you got the lunch break, you got all the other nutrition breaks. You have the teacher going in there, but they got to deal with the idiot and the kid who's always throwing stuff at other kids. You got the other one that's over there breaking the computers, and you got to deal with all these problems.
Yeah.
How much actual learning is the kid getting, or the kids or the teacher's saying a lesson, but the kid's not paying attention because there's 30 kids and look at so like how much learning is a kid actually getting?
Yeah.
But then let's be generous and let's say 50% of the time. So that's 3 hours out of 6, right? So here we go in homeschool environment where you sit down for 3 hours and you're getting one-on-one, or in this case, 1-on-2 or whatever, but you're getting that personalized teaching where you're sitting down and actually learning like that whole time. And then that's it.
Yep.
Right. You sit down, you get your work done in 3 hours and then you just get out.
Yep. Yep.
So,
exactly.
and like, how much do you need to sit down? I mean, they don't need to go out and get a job tomorrow. You know what I mean? There's time to learn all this kind of stuff, right?
Time. Yeah.
And I think the older you get and the more, and the thing is too, is what they don't teach. Like you got to learn how to learn too. So once we get the kids being more independent, they can start learning for themselves. And it's just like how you're an adult, right? If you want to start learning how to do something, you don't have a teacher. I mean, I guess you can hire a class, whatever, but you know what I mean? It's the work that you're putting in is going to gauge how successful you are. And it's the same thing for kids with school. I mean, you can't teach someone who just doesn't want to learn. So anyways.
So
that's kind of our homeschool journey. Is there anything else that?
There's a big one. So the big thing that people are going to tell you ask you when you pull your kids is, oh, what about socialization?
Right.
And that is just
that's what the phone's for.
Just accept that is a question you're just going to get until the end of time, because that's just what it is. And I mean, if your kids already have friends in your neighborhood, like, you're fine. Like,
but that was for me being so anti-school, I guess you can say, if you want to call it that. That is my biggest concern. Or was like, well, you're pulling them out of whatever. And that I think that's like a
concern too.
Other than learning how to interact learning like math and science or whatever, you got to learn how to function in society with other people.
Yeah, of course.
So that's half the battle.
Yeah.
So that was important to me, and still is important.
So, and I mean, there's always opportunities. Well, I mean, not so much now, but there was. Where, I mean, there's kids in your neighborhood. There's all kinds of activities you can sign up for, like obviously like hockey, soccer, whatever. But the fun thing about homeschool is there's all these secret ones that happen during the day when all the other kids are in school. And so this is where you need to really kind of find your homeschool peeps. And for me, it was really hard because not only were we new to homeschool, we were new to the city. So I hadn't even made any friends yet. So I didn't even have a community to kind of tap out and say, hey, do you guys know anyone that homeschools?
Right. And this is when we're talking about when we moved to Sudbury. When we did homeschooling full time. We started quite a few years ago.
Yeah. So that was tough, but I just happened to meet a mom on Maya's soccer team that homeschooled, and that like opened the door to the whole community in Sudbury, which was really cool. So I got really lucky meeting her.
But still, the more people you go out and meet and put yourself out there, you'll.
Well,
because It is. It's like a community. When you have
Yes,
homeschoolers, they end up knowing each other.
Oh yeah.
Their
everybody
kids end
knows
up going
everybody.
to different places together during the day, different field trips or whatever. They organize
Yeah.
like actual field trips like you would in school where the kids get together and do things. So
Yeah. So if you are.
so how would you do this?
So
Say
how'd I go?
someone's
Okay.
gonna want to homeschool.
So number one, go out to places during times when other kids are in schools, because the families that you see that are out when other kids are supposed to be in schools, they're probably homeschoolers.
Right,
And
especially when you see kids like, why aren't you in school kind of thing.
Yeah. So that's when you kind of just have to suck it up and go for it and just say, oh, hey, are you here because you're homeschooling?
And you got to suck it up if you're
If you're
a shy person
which
that
is
doesn't.
what I am. So it's tough, but you have to do it. So really good places to go, like Science Center. The big one for us was the Science Center in Sudbury. When we moved here, library.
Science North.
Science North.
Say Science Center.
It's a
Science North.
A
Everyone knows
Science Center.
it's Science North.
Anyways,
No one calls it. Don't call it that. It's blasphemy.
The best place to go for homeschoolers is the library. Like that's like the homeschooler hub. So usually, there'll be like homeschoolers that have like a day or an afternoon that they've kind of rented, and then there's programming there for homeschoolers. Yep. So that's a really good place to go. I just ask the librarian, say, is there any homeschool programs that happen here or that you know of?
Yeah, I think it depends on the age of your kids as well too.
Yeah,
but I would say
100%.
now too, there's got to be now like online groups.
I was just gonna say
so much more than there was when we first started homeschool.
So yeah, like I think I'm a part of like I don't know how many different homeschool groups on Facebook right now, and so that's where they say like, oh, this is happening, you know, come out and join us. The big thing here is one of the moms organizes. It's a whole morning. It's only for homeschool kids at the big sportsplex here, and it's swimming lessons. So the whole place is rented out just for homeschoolers.
Right.
So, and that's all that's how I knew about it, was on Facebook. So yeah. And even like look up like homeschool groups in my area, like just Google it or whatever. And cause there's a couple different websites, and then they'll have links to their Facebook pages, and then you can you know how you search.
Why are you listening to us? I mean, just use the internet.
Yeah,
you don't know. How do I find this? Like use the internet. What's
the only thing I'll say, I did have a hard time finding the Facebook group, the main Facebook group for this area, because the name was really not intuitive, and I had to one of the moms had to tell me what it was.
Oh really?
Yeah,
that's interesting.
So it was because it's called the Comedy of Errors.
Yeah, that's weird.
So anyways, I would never have found that on my own. That's the only kind of thing to be aware of. It's kind of crappy.
But even if you just do Google searches or whatever, I'm sure something will come up even.
You'll find something, but so that's a big one. And the thing is like, it's not just for your kids, it's for you too, because it's just like, even the kids are like, oh my God, Mom, you talk so much. You're always talking. So, but it's nice because you can compare curriculum, you can compare strategies, you can compare a bunch of other things.
Yep.
So that part's really...
Yeah, and make some friends and all that stuff.
Yeah.
All that fun stuff.
Yeah.
And then plan outings together with your kids.
Well, and then you find like the secret things. Like we had in Sudbury, there was like a, not secret, but just you wouldn't know about it unless you knew the people, and it was the drop-in gymnastics. So, which the kids loved. The homeschool, that was their favorite thing. So, and that was during the day, so there was not very many people.
There's nobody there, of course. During the day, all the other kids are at school.
Yeah, it's the best. So yeah. And then I guess two more things.
If you wish.
I wish. So the one thing is really like pick your battles with your kids. Like we were talking about the reading with Tristan. I knew if I pushed it and pushed and pushed, it was not going to end well. So kind of be able to gauge that. The other thing was, they always when they were little, they just always wanted to wear their pajamas all day. And this drove me freaking nuts because I hate wearing pajamas all day.
Yeah,
I'm like,
you hate wearing pajamas all day, but they don't.
And so what's the big deal with that? There's no big deal.
Yeah, just let it be.
The only rule was you have to put clothes on when people come over when we go out. So, that's reasonable. So, but really, like, just really pick your battles with it. And I think this was the thing too with me, because I'm type A. I'm like, oh, we need to read all these like really classic books, like Black Beauty, and
all of that. I've never heard of that book before.
Oh, it's like a horse book. It's a classic apparently, or all these like other.
Apparently, so you don't even know.
No, it is. And all these like other classes, I need to read those. We can't read, like regular, like modern contemporary stuff. Like we can't read that. We really need to dig in and delve into these books. And it's like, actually,
no, you don't.
You don't. And the kids are not into that stuff at all. So why bother? You can make novel study lessons really comprehensive and really great using stuff they're into. So again, it's about their interests.
Right.
Maya loves Percy Jackson. So Percy Jackson was one of our novel studies.
It's like you just think of like yourself and like watching movies.
Yeah.
Do you want to watch those? Oh, look at this movie. This is the most cinematic, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Old school 1930s
Citizen
movie.
Kane. Yeah.
And you're like,
what the fuck?
The hell is this? This is bullshit. I want to watch.
Well, and then the funny thing though is like sometimes you'll get these amazing surprises that you will not expect,
Right.
and you're just like, oh, this is amazing. So Tristan was in grade 9 last year, and I was like, okay, we have to do a Shakespeare, and I was like, you know what? Just a one and done. We'll do Romeo and Juliet because it's like the easiest one. We'll just do that one and done. At least I've introduced it, right? At least he's had the exposure. I think that's important. Well, both kids. And we read it and they loved it.
Yeah.
They were asking, can we do another one? And I was like, really? And so we did another one. And then they were like, can we do another one? I was like, what?
He's got
we did 3 in 1 year? Like, this is amazing.
He's got a few books.
Yeah. So those ones will shock you, which is fun. That's the really fun part.
Yep.
And the last thing I'll say is just give yourself and give your kids some grace, especially at the start.
Yeah, we were saying that.
Don't put pressure on yourself. You're not a bad mom. You're not a bad parent. You're not.
Well, some of you are. Come on, let's be real.
You're not failing your kids. If you have bad days, just let it go. Just stop homeschooling.
Do you think you're not gonna? Do you not have bad days at work?
Yeah.
Do you think you never had a bad day when you were a kid?
Yeah,
it happens.
And some days, like, you just pull the plug on it. Just stop it, because there's no learning that's gonna happen if it's a rough day. Like if there's a meltdown, just pull the plug on that day and just be done with it.
Yeah.
But you just
get them out back doing yard work for a couple hours.
100%.
That'll teach them.
100%.
You don't want to do school work? Well, you're gonna do some hard labor.
Throw in the snake bit.
I gotta get one of those.
But no, I think it's just really important just to be kind to yourself and make sure you get some breaks for yourself, because it's intensive when you're with them all day, every day.
Well, 3 hours a day for the homeschool.
Well, for homeschool, but then you got to plan, and you're still
know.
with them for the rest of the day. So give yourself some time.
So you get
as
the
well.
deadbeat husband to do some work.
Yeah. So yeah, and I think that's like about it.
Yeah, that's pretty much our journey. It's been a long one. I mean, like you've said, we've been homeschooling for almost 7 years now. Yeah. But thinking about it probably for 9, 10, like I said, almost since Tristan was 2. So probably even then I was like, okay, well, how's this going to work? Right. Even then it was always like, oh, I don't know. But like you said, I think we got a combination of luck and your hard work to get that really good school at the start. But even then he was still, at the end, he was still half days because it was getting older, and there was still stuff we didn't delve into
any of that, but it was still really rough.
Right.
There was still really
I mean, Tristan's like a different person now, and
100%.
Anyways, so if looking back now, there's kind of a question I wanted to ask. How well, like if we put the kids back in school now, how well do you think that they would do? And like, do you think Tristan would still, especially Tristan, would he still have as hard time as he did back then?
Yeah.
You still think he would have?
I think
really bad meltdowns. Like he hasn't had a meltdown.
No, I don't think he'd have a meltdown. I think all the noise, and all I can think about is locker doors slamming shut. That's all I can think about, and I'm just like, I feel like that'd be hard. I feel like spending so long inside all day would be hard. Not having that autonomy. They're both so used to having so much autonomy, and managing their own time. I think that would be, I feel like they would feel like they're rats in a cage. But like, in terms of like school stuff, they'd be fine.
No, I'm not talking about school stuff learning. I'm talking about the whole thing, right? Like, would they be successful?
Yeah. I don't
Well,
know.
I think they would.
They would
eventually.
like the classes, but I feel like the whole social atmosphere is, I mean, that's a whole podcast on its own. I feel like that is just a whole different, it's a different
Yeah.
thing. So,
Yeah.
and add autism onto that, and
Yeah. It's a whole nother thing.
it's a whole other thing.
So anyways, but regrets?
Ugh, that
No.
we didn't do it earlier.
Uh,
And this is what,
yeah.
and it's funny because that's the same answer that every homeschool mom will give you. We should have done it earlier.
Should have done earlier. While I was wishy-washy for like a couple of years, didn't know what to do.
Should have done it. Yeah.
So if you want to do it, just take the plunge. Take a couple months, if your kids are fine in school now or whatever. Take the time, get some curriculum stuff together, like your own lessons or whatever. Start pulling things together. Like you said, look at the school board.
So, and the big thing I will say is we've never bought a big box curriculum.
No,
I think
we never will.
I think we already mentioned that. But the one thing I will say is I do really like teachers pay teachers.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Because you can just buy like there's so many great sellers on there. Just search and things will come up in like all different price ranges. And
like $5 or $10.
Yeah, and you can get some really good stuff. And I'll do another post on like my favorite sellers on there, because sometimes you do kind of get duds.
Yeah.
But there's some really great and there's even one, like I'm reusing one that I already bought. I've used it, I think, 5 years ago, and we're just kind of reusing
just doing it again. Why not?
As just a review for next stuff. So, but it's just great because it's just one-off lessons, and then again you can tailor it to what your kid's into.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Cool. Yeah. Right on.
Yeah.
So yeah, just take the plunge.
Take the plunge. Do it.
You won't be sorry.
You won't. No, it's the best. And
Kids might, but
and honestly,
no, kids will love it.
And reach out if you have more questions that we didn't cover, or like you have.
Yeah, it is here's the plug. Here we go.
No,
All
I'm
right.
just saying.
Where do you want people to go?
Reach out. Well, we have our email, so email.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, just check out our website. We got some posts on there about homes.
Yeah, I do have a post up there.
We'll always have more stuff going on there as well too.
And there's lots of different books too. If you really want to read up, that I can write a post about that as well. Just some more resources and.
Yep.
But just reach out and chat. I'm always
right
here.
On. Yeah, our website is nutuplife.com.
Yep.
And that's us. That's where you can find us.
Yeah.
So with that, I think that's it. I think we're good. I think we're all homeschooled out, at least the beginning anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our story, and hopefully there's some bits of information there that you can find useful from our journey.
Yeah.
Which is still mistakes. Some stuff that's still going on, still learning and still teaching, obviously. So maybe things will be completely different in 2 years. Who knows? But we're very happy with our choice, and we're very happy with the progress that our kids are making. So everything is going great, and hopefully it'll go great for you as well.
Yeah.
So thank you very much once again for listening, or watching, or however else you are absorbing this. Consuming the content. However we're tickling your ears these days.
That's great.
And you always gotta go there. You always gotta go. You gotta make it weird. Why you gotta make this weird? None of this should be weird. What are you talking about? This should be fine.
Anyways.
And with that, have a good one. Thank you for listening, watching.
Not up this week.
Not up this week.
Mm-hmm. Do
it. Just start homeschooling this week. There you go. That's what Andrea says. Just homeschool this week.
Homeschool this week.
All right.
Cool.
Have a good one. See you next time.
I came
from the mud. There's